Imagine this for a moment. You wake up in the morning, make breakfast for everyone, get the kids ready, check in on your partner's needs, maybe even handle a few errands before the day has really begun. Hours later, after work and home responsibilities, you realize you haven't really done one thing today just for yourself. Not a quiet moment, not a meal you actually enjoyed, not even time to pause and breathe. Does that sound familiar? If so, you're not alone. Many people in long-term relationships, especially in marriage, find themselves slowly shifting into the role of caretaker, fixer, or supporter, while quietly moving themselves further and further down the priority list. And here's the thing. It usually doesn't happen all at once. It's subtle. It's a pattern that builds over time, often with good intentions, love, commitment, sacrifice, but it can lead to exhaustion, resentment, and even a loss of identity. That's why today, we're going to talk about 4 clear psychological signs that you may be putting yourself last in your marriage. These signs are not about blame or guilt. They're about awareness. Because once you recognize these patterns, you can begin to shift them, not only for your own well-being, but for the health and balance of your relationship too. So let's have this conversation as if we're sitting together over a warm cup of tea. I'll walk you through each sign, explain the psychology behind it, and share gentle reflections you can take with you. The first sign is when you consistently silence your needs to avoid conflict. Let me explain this. In psychology, there's something called conflict avoidance behavior. Many people, especially in relationships, start believing that keeping the peace is more important than expressing their needs. Maybe you've said things like, "It's fine, it's not a big deal," or "I don't want to cause an argument," even when deep down, it is a big deal to you. Over time, this pattern teaches your brain that your voice doesn't matter as much as your partner's comfort. Psychologists call this self-silencing. Research has shown that people who engage in self-silencing in relationships often report lower self-esteem and higher levels of stress. Because every time you suppress a need, you're telling yourself, sometimes unconsciously, "My needs aren't as important." Here's a small reflection exercise. Think about the last time you disagreed with your partner. Did you express how you really felt, or did you hold back to avoid tension? If you find that you often choose silence, it might be a sign you've been putting yourself last. And remember, healthy relationships can hold disagreements. Love isn't about never disagreeing. It's about feeling safe enough to express yourself, even when you do. The second sign is when your sense of identity begins to fade into your partner's. This is a big one, and it happens more than people realize. In psychology, we talk about something called enmeshment. It's when the boundaries between two people become so blurred that one person's needs, desires, and even personality start to overshadow the other's. Now, in a marriage, it's natural to share dreams, routines, and values. But when you look up one day and can't quite answer questions like, "What do I enjoy?" or "What do I want outside of my partner's needs?" that's a red flag. Because it means your individual self has been pushed so far back, it's almost hidden. Let's say your partner loves a particular type of food, and so you always cook it. They prefer a certain movie genre, so that's all you ever watch together. They have hobbies, and you spend time supporting those. But when was the last time you pursued something that was purely yours? That loss of self doesn't just affect you, it affects the relationship. Why? Because attraction, intimacy, and partnership thrive when two whole people come together. When one person fades, the dynamic becomes unbalanced. A good exercise here is to ask yourself, if I had a free day, with no responsibilities and no partner expectations, what would I do? If that question feels hard to answer, it might be because you've been putting yourself last for too long. A third sign is chronic emotional burnout. This isn't just about feeling tired, it's about feeling drained. Psychologically, emotional burnout happens when you continuously give emotional support, encouragement, and care, but rarely receive it in return. Think of it like a bank account. You're constantly making withdrawals for your partner, but very few deposits are coming back to you. Research in relationship psychology shows that one of the strongest predictors of long-term satisfaction is perceived reciprocity. That means both partners feel they give and receive emotional support in a balanced way. But when you're always the listener, the comforter, the fixer, and you rarely feel emotionally held yourself, it leads to burnout. And burnout doesn't just show up as exhaustion, it can appear as irritability, difficulty concentrating, even physical symptoms like headaches or insomnia. Ask yourself, do you feel emotionally replenished after interactions with your partner, or do you often feel depleted? If the answer is depletion, it's a signal that the balance has tipped. Here's something practical. Start noticing the small moments. If you had a hard day, do you allow yourself to say, I need a hug, or I need to talk about this? Or do you push it aside, telling yourself it's not worth mentioning? Practicing small requests for emotional support is a step toward restoring balance. The fourth sign is when guilt becomes your default emotion whenever you think about self-care. Psychologically, guilt is a powerful regulator of behavior. In relationships, especially marriages, some people develop what's known as caregiver guilt. It's the belief that taking time for yourself is selfish or somehow neglectful of your partner. For example, let's say you want to spend an afternoon reading a book, going for a walk, or meeting a friend. Instead of enjoying the idea, your mind fills with thoughts like, but what if my partner needs me? What if they think I'm neglecting them? Maybe I should stay home instead. That constant guilt is a sign you've conditioned yourself to believe your worth is tied only to giving, not receiving, not resting, not being. The psychology behind this often traces back to early experiences. Maybe growing up, you were praised when you were helpful, quiet, or self-sacrificing. Over time, that becomes your script in adult relationships too. But here's the truth. Self-care isn't selfish. In fact, from a psychological standpoint, it strengthens your capacity to show up fully in your relationship. Because a drained version of you can't give love as deeply as a replenished you can. So if guilt is your automatic reaction to the idea of me time, it's a clear sign you've been putting yourself last. Now let's pause and tie this together. If you noticed yourself in one or more of these signs, silencing your needs, losing your identity, emotional burnout, or constant guilt, you may be carrying the invisible weight of putting yourself last in your marriage. And I want to tell you something important. Awareness is the first and most powerful step toward change. This isn't about pointing fingers at your partner. It's about recognizing patterns within yourself. Because when you begin to reclaim your voice, your identity, your energy, and your right to care, you're not only improving your own well-being, you're strengthening the foundation of your relationship too. A marriage thrives when both people are whole, not when one person is constantly running on empty. So what can you do? Start small. Express one need without apologizing. Spend 1 hour on something just for you. Allow yourself to name your feelings, even if they cause a little discomfort in the moment. These micro steps build over time into a healthier, more balanced dynamic. And remember, you deserve to be cared for just as much as you care for others. If this conversation resonated with you, I invite you to take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who may need these gentle reminders, and subscribe to the channel so we can continue exploring these important topics together. Your growth matters, your well-being matters, and your relationship deserves the version of you that feels alive, valued, and whole. Thank you for spending this time with me today. Until next time, take care of your mind, take care of your heart, and never forget, you are worthy of balance and love, both from others and from yourself.